Imagine if you were a scenario. You're being gently, almost politely, criticized by someone you, well, deeply respect.
Right, someone whose opinion actually holds weight for you.
Exactly. And they point out that you've been hoarding a few too many things. Maybe your closet is overflowing, or your workspace has become an absolute disaster zone.
A pretty normal, everyday kind of confrontation, really.
Yeah, just a very simple, direct question about why you need all this stuff. And your reaction, your immediate visceral reaction, is not to argue. It's not to apologize or explain yourself.
Which would be the standard human response.
Right. Instead, your reaction is to immediately strip completely naked in front of a massive crowd of your peers. Just, boom, clothes off, standing there shouting that this is how you live from now on.
It is a stunning escalation. I mean, to go from a mild inquiry about material possessions to complete public self-humiliation, it just bypasses every normal human defense mechanism we have.
It's wild.
It really is. It's a complete system override of our basic social conditioning.
It sounds so absurd, you would almost think it was a sketch comedy routine. But this actually happened in one of the most revered ancient texts we have.
Yeah, it's a very real piece of ancient history.
Before we unpack the mind-bending psychology of what happens next, I want to humbly welcome you to the Simplified Awakening channel. We are so thrilled you're here joining us for this deep dive today.
It's going to be a good one.
It really is. If you find yourself captivated by exploring the hidden depths of ancient wisdom, please take a moment to subscribe, like this video, and share your valuable comments below. We genuinely value your perspective as part of this community.
And the material we are exploring today is certainly going to provoke some strong reactions. It challenges a lot of, well, our modern assumptions about ego and validation.
Absolutely. So our mission today is to examine a single, deeply layered text from the Buddhist tradition. It's called the Nakajataka.
A fascinating piece of literature.
We are looking at a story that perfectly illustrates how a sudden, spectacular lack of shame can cost a person absolutely everything, from their foundational spiritual faith to a literal royal bride.
Yeah, it's a text that operates as a psychological case study and like a cosmological epic all at once.
It really covers a lot of ground.
Yeah.
But to really understand the gravity of this, we have to look at the environment where this incident takes place, right? The setting is everything here.
Oh, setting is crucial.
Let's transport ourselves to the ancient grounds of Jetavana. Now, this wasn't just any location. Jetavana was a major, highly structured monastery.
Right. It was an environment dedicated entirely to deep contemplation, order, and strict asceticism.
Right. And living within this highly disciplined community is a brother, a monk, who has developed a rather contradictory reputation. He's known for having a vast accumulation of, quote, belongings.
Which is a fundamental violation of the life he chose. I mean, in the context of ancient asceticism, monks' possessions were strictly limited to the bare essentials.
We're talking like what? A bowl, some robes.
Exactly. Perhaps a bowl, a specific number of robes, and a few basic tools for hygiene. That's it. The entire philosophical architecture of his life was supposed to be built on non-attachment.
So to be recognized specifically for having many belongings means he wasn't just slipping up a little bit.
No, he was flagrantly hoarding in a space designed to eradicate that exact impulse.
So this behavior inevitably draws attention. The master approaches this brother, and what strikes me is the tone of the confrontation. There's no screaming. There was no immediate punishment.
That's very measured.
Very measured. The master simply asks, "Is this report true, brother, that you have many belongings?" The brother answers, "Yes, sir." And then the master asks a very simple, probing question. He says, "Why have you come to own so many belongings?"
Notice the mechanics of that question, though. It is diagnostic. The master isn't merely condemning the hoarding.
Right.
He is demanding introspection. He is asking the monk to locate the root cause of his attachment. It's an invitation to engage in the very spiritual work the monk signed up for.
But self-reflection is the absolute last thing that happens here. The text tells us that the brother doesn't even let the master finish his thought. He completely melts down.
Total panic response.
Yeah, he tears off the entirety of his clothing, stands stark naked as a village urchin right there in the middle of the monastery, and yells, "I'll go about like this."
He essentially detonates his own social standing in a matter of seconds. When confronted with a mild critique, he chooses complete social annihilation.
Okay, let's unpack this, because I am trying to wrap my head around the mechanism of that reaction. It reminds me of the fragility of a glass house.
How so?
Imagine someone lives in a massive glass house, representing their ego, and someone walks by and simply points out a smudge on one of the windows.
Okay.
Instead of just grabbing a towel to wipe off the smudge, the owner takes a sledgehammer and shatters the entire building, just to prove that nobody else can control the house.
Wow, yes.
Right. Why does a simple question about material possessions trigger such a severe, self-sabotaging response?
Well, the glass house metaphor is highly accurate here because it gets to the core of what we might call the defensive weaponization of humiliation.
The defensive weaponization of humiliation. That's a heavy concept.
It is, but it fits perfectly. When an individual's identity becomes entirely entangled with their possessions or, the image they project through those possessions, any threat to that hoard feels like an existential threat to the self.
Ah, so the stuff is literally who he is in his mind.
Exactly. The monk was fundamentally attached to his material goods. So when the master gently pierced that illusion, the monk experienced a toxic, overwhelming flood of shame.
So the extreme reaction is actually a defense mechanism to avoid dealing with the shame.
Precisely. By stripping naked, he's taking control of the narrative in the most destructive way possible. He's effectively saying, if you are going to judge me for what I have, I will aggressively show you that I have nothing, not even basic human modesty.
So it's like a bizarre power play.
Yeah, he prefers to destroy his own dignity on his own terms rather than submit to the vulnerability of admitting he was wrong. It is ego preservation through complete self-destruction.
But the crowd's reaction proves that this tactic totally backfires. It doesn't make him look powerful or liberated at all. The text explicitly notes that the crowd cries, "Oh, fie,"
which is a visceral, communal expression of absolute disgust. He completely miscalculated his audience.
And the fallout is absolute. He is immediately loathed by everyone. He runs away, and the text specifically details that he loses his faith and reverts to the lower state of a layman.
He lost everything.
Yeah, he didn't just lose his clothes in that moment. He lost his entire path in life.
And we really have to look at the specific audience that witnessed this. The text is very deliberate in outlining that he lost his dignity in front of the 4 classes of followers.
Right, the text breaks that down.
It does. It identifies these as the brethren, the sisters, the lay brothers, and the lay sisters.
So literally every single demographic layer of his society.
Exactly. That specific categorization represents the entirety of the spiritual and social ecosystem of Jetavana. He alienated his peers, his superiors, and the broader community that supported the monastery.
Just a comprehensive excommunication brought on entirely by his own hand.
Entirely.
So following this catastrophic event, the brethren are understandably reeling. They gather in the Hall of Truth to process this massive impropriety. And then the master enters, inquires about their discussion, and drops a total bombshell.
Right, he reframes the whole event.
He tells them that this isn't the first time this man's shamelessness has ruined his life.
The master says, "Brethren, this is not the only loss his shamelessness has caused him, for in bygone days he lost a jewel of a wife, just as now he has lost the jewel of the faith."
Which introduces a massive shift in the scope of our deep dive today. To explain the deep-seated nature of this character flaw, the master transports the narrative back to the deep mythological past.
Way back.
Yeah, specifically, the text takes us to the first cycle of the world's history.
And we really need to pause and look at the cosmological mechanics at play here. Ancient Eastern traditions often view time not as a straight line, but as vast cyclical eras of creation, flourishing, and destruction.
Right, these massive cycles.
Yes. By deliberately placing this past life story in the first cycle, the text is signaling to the listener that we are dealing with foundational universal truths. We are witnessing the era where the blueprint for the universe's order is being drawn up.
That blueprint involves establishing leadership across the entire natural world, right? The text describes how the animal kingdoms held elections for their monarchs.
A very organized process.
Extremely. The quadrupeds, the 4-legged animals, chose the lion, which, makes perfect biological sense. The birds chose the golden mallard.
Very regal.
But the fishes chose the monster fish Ananda. I have to stop here because that is such a wonderfully specific detail. I love that.
It's very evocative.
It is. But it makes me wonder, why spend so much time organizing the animal kingdom into these distinct monarchies before getting to the actual plot of the story? It feels like heavy world building for a story about a guy who can't handle losing an argument.
Well, the world building is the entire point. You cannot have a shocking disruption of decorum if you have not firmly established what decorum actually looks like.
Oh, that makes sense.
The text is constructing a universe of absolute structural harmony. The land has its sovereign, the water has its sovereign, the sky has its sovereign, everyone knows their place, and society operates on respect and natural hierarchy.
I see. It's establishing a baseline of profound order. If the universe functions on these grand rules and mutual respect, then a sudden chaotic lack of shame is going to stand out like a glaring error in the code.
That's the exact mechanism at work. The profound order of the first cycle makes the impending chaos meaningful. It highlights the magnitude of the disruption.
Okay, so with the Golden Mallard firmly established as the sovereign of the skies, we are introduced to his royal family. And this is the catalyst for the conflict.
Right, his daughter.
The Golden Mallard has a lovely young daughter, and he grants her a remarkable boon, the right to choose her own husband.
Which, in the context of ancient patriarchal storytelling, is a massive concession of power.
A huge deal.
It demonstrates how highly valued she is, and it immediately elevates the stakes for every suitor in the kingdom. She is the ultimate prize, and the choice is entirely hers.
So to facilitate this, the king musters a great assembly. The imagery the text uses here is staggering. It describes a gathering of all manner of birds, swans, peacocks, every species imaginable, flocking together on a great plateau of bare rock in the high Himalayas.
If you try to visualize the sheer scale of that, it is breathtaking.
A sea of birds.
A massive, flat expanse of stone elevated in the mountains, literally blanketed with the colors, the movement, and the noise of the entire avian kingdom. It is a natural amphitheater built specifically for a grand display.
The tension must have been incredible. The princess steps out to review this massive crowd. She is looking out over the entire avian world, waiting for a sign. And then her eye lands on the peacock.
And the text gives us the exact mechanism of her attraction here. It states explicitly that she chose him because of his neck of jeweled sheen and tail of varied hue.
He is visually spectacular. He has that iridescent, almost metallic neck and the massive, colorful tail. She looks at this display and declares, "Let this be my husband."
She has made her choice.
She has. The assembly of birds then approaches the peacock to deliver the good news. They formally tell him, "Friend Peacock, this princess, in choosing her husband from among all these birds, has fixed her choice on you."
It is the absolute peak of his existence. He has won the ultimate prize, and he won it entirely based on his inherent external beauty.
But here's where the structure of the source text does something really interesting. The narrative tells us the birds inform the peacock he has been chosen. And then suddenly it skips the physical climax of the story.
It jumps right back.
Yeah. It cuts straight back to the master identifying the past lives. We know from the master's earlier setup that his shamelessness cost him the bride. But the exact moment of his failure isn't described in the text fragment we're analyzing. Wait, the story implies his shamelessness cost him the bride. What exactly connects the peacock to the naked monk?
What's fascinating here is how the master connects the dots. Even with the physical climax omitted, the master provides the synthesis required to understand the mechanism of failure.
Okay, what does he say?
The master explicitly states, "The brother with the many belongings was the peacock of those days, and I myself the royal mallard." Furthermore, the master said the monk lost a jewel of a wife in the past, just as he lost the jewel of the faith, now due to his shamelessness.
So the psychological flaw is identical, just wearing different clothes or, well, in this case, feathers.
Exactly. Think about what the peacock's varied hue represents in this parallel. The peacock is validated entirely by his external appearance, his biological belongings. Just like the hoarder monk, the peacock's identity is entirely wrapped up in what he can display to others. And just as the monk, when the pressure was on, lost his mind and stripped naked in a shameless display, the peacock's vanity demands that he put on a shameless display of his feathers.
Wait, I think I see the connection clearly now. The monk tearing off his clothes to show he had nothing, and the peacock displaying his massive tail to show he had everything. They're the exact same behavior.
Yes.
They're both a complete abandonment of modesty, fueled entirely by a fragile ego.
Precisely. They both let their ego demand a performance right at the critical moment. The peacock revealed a fundamental lack of internal substance beneath his jeweled sheen, just as the monk revealed a lack of spiritual substance beneath his hoarded belongings.
Oh.
Both men, or, bird and man, sabotage themselves right at the finish line because they lacked humility.
It's the tragedy of needing external validation more than you need the actual prize.
Mhm.
You have what you want, but you can't get out of your own way because your ego demands that everyone look at you.
It perfectly illustrates the profound danger of seeking validation without maintaining internal humility. And what is truly remarkable is that this specific observation about the mechanics of human ego isn't isolated to this one
It
text.
goes much further, doesn't it?
Yes. The footnotes provided with our source material offer metadata that shows how this exact psychological case study traveled across global history.
The historical footnotes are fascinating.
Yeah.
I was looking at the references, and this isn't just a local legend. We're seeing fragments of this narrative carved into the stupa of Barhut, specifically Plate 27.
Which is a massive ancient Buddhist monument in India. Having it literally carved into stone means it was utilized as a foundational teaching tool for the masses. But its influence didn't stop at the borders of India.
Right. The text notes it appears in cross-cultural works like Benfei's Panyakatantra, which is a famous collection of ancient animal fables. It's referenced in Han's Sagewas.
Very wide reach.
But the one that really stopped me in my tracks is that a version of this story appears in the ancient Greek histories written by Herodotus, specifically in Book 6, Chapter 129.
This is where we have to look at the mechanics of cultural transmission. I mean, how does a Buddhist fable about a shameless peacock end up in the writings of the father of history in ancient Greece?
That's the big question. It wasn't exactly easy to share a viral story back then.
No, it happened through the slow, relentless exchange of culture along ancient trade routes, like the Silk Road, and through the Hellenistic expansion following Alexander the Great. Merchants, soldiers, and travelers didn't just trade silk and spices.
They traded story.
They traded narratives, they traded moral frameworks.
And a story about a guy who ruins his own life because he just has to show off is universally relatable. Whether you were an ascetic monk in ancient India or a politician in ancient Greece, ego operates the exact same way.
It elevates the entire deep dive. It demonstrates that the text's critique of shameless vanity resonated across fundamentally different ancient global civilizations.
It's a human problem.
Exactly. Human nature, particularly the fragility of the ego and the destructive power of vanity, hasn't changed. It is a foundational human experience, beautifully wrapped in a mythological metaphor.
It really is a mirror. It forces you to look at your own life and ask, where is my ego demanding a performance? Where am I acting like the hoarder monk, ready to burn down my reputation over a gentle critique?
And that universality is exactly why texts like the Nakajataka survive for millennia.
So as we synthesize everything we've explored today, from the disciplined grounds of Jetavana to the Grand Assembly on the Himalayan Plateau, all the way to the rock carvings of Barhut and the texts of ancient Greece, how do we distill the overarching theme of this deep dive? What is the core takeaway for us right now?
Well, the core takeaway rests in understanding the mechanics of that dual loss. The master deliberately connects the monk's loss of the jewel of the faith to his past loss of the jewel of a wife. It is a timeless lesson on the speed and efficiency of self-destruction. A lack of humility, whether it is triggered by an obsessive need to hoard material possessions to feel safe, or by sheer, unadulterated vanity demanding to be seen, can instantly dismantle your standing in your community.
It happens so fast.
It does. You can spend a lifetime building your faith, your reputation, or your relationships, and it only takes one moment of unchecked, ego-driven shamelessness to unravel all of it.
It is a sobering reality to confront. The higher you build that glass house of ego, the more catastrophic the shatter is going to be when someone finally points out a smudge.
Very true.
Well, to everyone listening on the Simplified Awakening channel, thank you so much for taking this deep dive with us today. Be sure to stay hooked for the next story coming to the channel because, as you can see, there is an incredible amount of wisdom hidden in these ancient texts, just waiting to be unpacked and applied to our modern lives.
There is always more to uncover when we look closely at where we came from.
Before we sign off, I want to leave you with a final thought, something to mull over on your own time. Think about the peacock, standing on that plateau, spreading its colorful tail, absolutely desperate to be seen and validated by the crowd.
It's a powerful image.
Now, look at our world today. In a highly visual, social media-driven society, are we all being implicitly encouraged to act exactly like that peacock? By constantly putting our own modern versions of a jeweled sheen on display, curating our lives perfectly for likes, comments, and external validation, are we unknowingly risking our own versions of shamelessness? And by performing so desperately for the crowd, are we in danger of losing what actually matters behind the scenes? Think about that the next time you feel the urge to strip away your own privacy just to get the world to look at you.